Hello. The Divine Code reading for November 2nd, pages 295 and 296. We're starting the unit, The Prohibition of Meat from a Living Animal, Chapter 1. Permissions and prohibitions commanded to Gentiles regarding meat, and species for which meat from a living animal is forbidden. Topic number 1. Adam. The first man was granted dominion over wild beasts, domesticated animals, and other living creatures. As the Torah states in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, and you shall rule over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the sky, and every living thing that moves on the earth. This dominion was granted to Adam only for using animals to perform useful tasks, and he was not permitted to kill any creature for food. See Tractate Sanhedrin 59b. Also, Rabbi Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg notes that based only on the fact that Adam was not permitted to eat animals, it is not clear whether he was commanded not to cause pain to an animal. Since he was not given complete control over all creatures, one might think that possibly he could have been permitted to since he was given complete control over all creatures, one might think that possibly he could have been permitted to do to them as he wished. The author notes from Sanhedrin 56b, it appears that Adam's control over animals was only in regard to using them for his needs. Nevertheless, he was forbidden to kill an animal even for his own needs, such as for his food. Surely then he was forbidden to cause needless suffering to an animal. So the understanding was Adam did not have permission to eat meat. He did not have permission to kill the animal for meat. And learning from that, if he's not allowed to use the animal for meat, he surely would not be allowed to cause pain to an animal when there was no reason to do so. Just cruelty to animals would not. If he's not permitted to kill an animal for meat, which is a logical use of the animal, therefore he would not be allowed to do unnecessary things to animals as well. However, he was permitted to eat from the carcass of an animal that had died naturally. See Rashi on Tractate Sanhedrin 57a and Tosafot on Sanhedrin 56b. There is a distinction between the sages as to whether Adam was commanded not to eat Aver Mem Hakai, that's flesh from a living animal. Rashi and Tosafot explain there. That's in the two locations in Sanhedrin, that Adam was not permitted to eat any animal for its flesh, was not permitted to kill any animal for its flesh, but he was permitted to eat from an animal that had died naturally. Therefore, the prohibition of Aver Mem Hakai for him and his descendants before the flood only applied practically to eating flesh that had become detached from a living animal due to injury or illness. Since he was forbidden to cut a living animal or to kill it in any way. So if he's not permitted to cut the animal, he couldn't detach a limb because that would be cutting the animal, which is cruelty. He's not permitted to kill an animal to eat the meat. However, if the animal died on its own, or if the animal had an accident and its leg got ripped off, that would be permitted for Adam to eat that. No, I'm sorry. It would be prohibited. It would be prohibited for Adam to eat the limb that it was detached from a living animal. So apparently he had a version of this law. Rambam, Laws of Kings 9:1, maintains that the prohibition of Abraham and Hakai was not commanded to Adam at all because he had no permission to eat meat. So Rambam is disagreeing with Tosafot and Rashi as to whether or not Adam could eat meat from a dead animal. See the comment in Keshnaf Mishnah. Rather, it was first commanded to Noach. This point does not affect the practical observance of the commandment after it was told to Noach. So the debate is to whether or not Adam was given permission. It has theoretical purposes as to understanding the nature of the commandment. However, for the halakkas that applies to us today, it's not relevant because what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do would be the same regardless of the theoretical questions of what occurred before Noah. However, it is clear according to all opinions that it was forbidden for Adam and his descendants to cut off a limb from a living animal because of the suffering it would cause to the animal. So earlier we were stating that to kill the animal was not permitted. Killing the animal for the flesh was not permitted, and therefore, because killing the animal would be even more of a serious thing, to do something less serious as cutting the limb off would also be prohibited. And it could be argued that Adam did have some manner of this law. He was given the 6 laws that everyone agrees on, the other 6 laws of the 7. The question is whether or not he was given the 7th. I would suggest, this is my figuring this out, this is my own idea. I would suggest that Adam had some manner of this law. He was not allowed to eat flesh, or he was not allowed to eat, he was not allowed to kill. Therefore, he had a measure of this law. However, the law adjusted, and laws could adjust prior to the revelation at Sinai. The law adjusted at the time of Noah into the version that we know today. Therefore, it would be said he did not have the law, meaning he did not have the law the way it's given in Sinai, which is the manner that it was given to Noah. He did not have that law. However, he had a measure of the law. He had a manner of the law at the time himself. He had 7 laws at that time. It's just that one law changed, and therefore we don't say that he had the law the way we have the law. It could also be said on a more spiritual level that the commandment not to eat the fruit of the tree of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He was commanded not to eat that until the sages explained that was for a couple hours. He wasn't allowed to have it. So if he'd waited, he could have had it. That would be similar to the commandment not to eat the limb of a living animal while it's alive. But I mean, once the animal's dead, then he would be permitted to eat the animal. So it's similar to the commandment they had regarding the fruit of the tree. But that's on a more of a spiritual level than a practical level. So the halakkas that we have after Noah that were sealed at the time of Sinai, regardless of all these theoretical questions, they apply to us the same either way. Just as Adam was not permitted to eat any creature, was not permitted to kill any creature to eat its flesh, he was also not permitted to cut off part of it during its lifetime to eat from it. And see the earlier note, Adam was also forbidden to remove and eat flesh from a living sheretz animal. For which the Noahide commandment that forbids eating Abraham Akai does not apply. And that we described in a couple of days, in 2 days. Just as he was not allowed to kill one, this is also learned from Genesis 2:16, from all the trees of the garden you may eat, which teaches that anything other than vegetation was forbidden for people to deliberately kill for food, until after the flood, when mankind was permitted to eat meat. See Rashi on Genesis 1:29 and Tractate Sanhedrin 59b. So there are permissions. There's a large number of animals that the Abraham Hakai does not apply to. And Adam would have had, whereas today it just applies to certain categories of animals, Adam, it would have applied to all animals. So that's another difference in the law between as it was given to Adam and how it was later given to Noah. And the version of that was given to Noah is what was given over at Sinai. Topic number 2. After the flood, Noah was granted greater permission than Adam. The dominion granted to him entitled him to kill any creature to eat its flesh, as the Torah states in Genesis 9, verses 2 and 3. The fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth and every bird of the sky, upon everything that moves on earth, and upon all fish of the sea. In your hand they were given. Every moving thing that lives shall be yours for food, like the green herbage. I have given you everything. Noah and his descendants were granted permission to kill any type of animal that they desired for the purpose of food. Still, it is not fitting for a person. It is fitting for a person to have compassion toward animals and kill them in the most painless manner possible. For mankind has not granted unrestricted permission to cause suffering to a creature, and as will be explained below in chapter 7. Moreover, it is fitting for a person to distance himself from cruelty to the fullest extent possible. See Rambam, The Guide to Perplexed, Volume 3, Chapter 17 and 40. Chapter 17 and 48. So Noah was given permission to eat animals. That the dominion that Adam was given was expanded to Noah in the extent that now he's given permission to eat animals for food. And there's all sorts of midrashim in that explaining what was going on and the reasons for that. He had the ability now to elevate the animals, whereas before he had just had the ability to elevate vegetation by eating them. Before the elevation of animals, the use of animals was just for whatever work they could do. It was a different approach. It was a different way of interacting with the creation. However, the prohibition against causing needless pain, and this will be discussed in chapter 7 of this unit, that prohibition was still in play at the time of Noah, and still in play today also. Obviously, when in rabbinic works, it's been explained to me, when it says obviously, what it means is that this is being given as a precept. We're being told something that, it's like it needs to be clear, or it needs to be taken as a fact. And it's just one of those things where you kind of put something in place, like 1 + 1 = 2. We just accept it as a fact. So it is accepted as a fact that there is no prohibition against a Gentile eating meat taken from a carcass of an animal that has died naturally. Deuteronomy 14:21. See Rashi and Tosafot cited above in note 4, who explained that Adam was allowed to eat meat of an animal that had died naturally. And nowhere in Torah is this prohibited for Gentiles. Rashi in Tractate Kulin 92b explains that for a period of time before Mount Sinai, the descendants of Noah voluntarily took upon themselves not to eat such meat. But this is not as a commandment. So in the Torah, there's a commandment for the Jew not to eat meat from a carcass of an animal that died naturally. The animal, in just its normal life function, at some point is going to die. And the meat just sitting there, and it's assuming that it died, assuming it's usable meat, Gentiles have permission to eat the meat. The Jew has more of a ritualistic connection to eating, and specifically eating meat. It's a ritualistic function that the Jewish person has that requires it to be slaughtered and handled in a certain manner. This ritualistic functioning does not apply to a non-Jew. In the time prior to Mount Sinai. Now, Mount Sinai is the point where the Jewish people took on a different role for the world. Therefore, at that point, there were changes that occurred in the functioning of creation where the Jewish people took this on. Prior to that, anybody could have that similar connection, that similar function. What's called a peace offering could be done by a non-Jew. After Sinai, peace offerings were not permitted for non-Jews, only for a Jew. The peace offering is the part where the community or the family or the person eats of the sacrifice. Prior to Sinai, the descendants of Noah could give peace offerings, and therefore they took on restrictions regarding the ritualistic aspects of the meat, including not eating meat that died naturally. And after Sinai, that no longer was no longer shayak, no longer relevant to the Gentile population, to the non-Jewish population, and therefore the non-Jewish population has permission to eat the meat from an animal that died naturally. Thank you.